Man, I love Sonic. If you ask me what my favorite Sonic game was, I'd have no choice but to tell you Sonic 06. Now, we've all heard people defending the game and saying it's not as bad as others say it is, but calling it the best Sonic game? Really? Yes, I'm serious. Sonic 06 not only has the potential to be the best Sonic game, but I'd say as it stands now, it already is. Not only does this game have one of the most interesting stories and levels, but also does just as much with the characters in the series as the adventure games, if not more. So I'm going to go over each story in the game and describe the hidden strengths that this game has, starting with Sonic's story, which is unquestionably the worst. We're off to a good start. The opening is actually really well done, though not as incredible as the opening of Unleashed or Colors, it's still very good. Unfortunately, right away we're introduced to one of the two biggest problems in the game. Elise aside though, this sequence is really cool. Sonic introduces himself as a tornado of wind who makes quick work of Eggman's— oh my god! Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention how hot they made Eggman in this game. Though he's certainly had better designs, I honestly don't hate this one that much. He feels more personable and classy here, like instead of being a cartoony villain who's bound to his machines, he's an actual manipulator who can go out and kick ass on his own. Another cool thing about Eggman in this game is he's using GUN robots here instead of his own Eggbots. This ties in possible connections that he stole the robots from Gun, after he was briefly on common ground with them to defeat the Black Arms. Sonic is able to make quick work of them though, considering he's the fastest thing alive, and the scene ends with a really cool shot of Silver. And then the quality drops, significantly. We then get to the main hub world, and this is where we meet Tails. This game was the first, and come to think of it, I think the only game in the series to have your sidekick characters follow you around in the hub world. And I see why Sega has been scared to bring them back. One of the biggest gripes with the side characters is that they'll follow you no matter where you are, and they usually don't think their path through when they're trying to get to you, leading to— yeah. I really don't mind it though. It doesn't obstruct the game that much, and I honestly think it's pretty funny. Maybe I need help. In Sonic's story, the main side mechanic is actually pretty unknown, even though it's a required part of the beginning of the game. As Patter puts it, we found the guy, and he told us to put rocks in our shoes. So we put rocks in our shoes, and now we know where Eggman is. The art of putting rocks in one's shoes can give you many abilities, many of which are used to exploit the game's second biggest issue, glitches. I think the reason that barely anyone knows about these little stones is because they aren't that relevant to the game, and can only be bought from some shops which most people don't even use. It's sad too because some of them actually have pretty cool abilities. My favorite one is the dash ability because it allows you to do this.
Oh my gosh, hold on. Somebody suggested in a comment in the last episode something very cruel. But I've got to try this. I have got to try this.
I think it would have been better if these abilities were hidden across the hub world, like the abilities in Unleashed instead of just being bought at the general store. Each of these does have a use though, and it really helps Sonic stand out in this game from Shadow and Silver, unlike in another game where he and Shadow are basically the same character. Once you get the Lightspeed Dash, you can finally get over to the first level. One thing I love about the levels in this game is that they each feel like they're alive and are their own areas. What helps is that across each story, the levels are different, which makes you feel like you're exploring a new part of an old area, keeping it from getting stale, unlike in Heroes. In games like Forces, it feels like you're just running down a singular strip of land while fighting enemies and collecting rings. 06 takes the adventure-style route, though, with each stage looking like an actual part of the world and not just a strip. Wave Ocean even has a callback to the Orca whale chase in Sonic Adventure's first level. Simply escaping the whale isn't enough this time, though. After this part of the level, you have to control Tails in order to continue. Though I wish Tails played more like he did in Adventure 1, his gameplay is pretty fun once you get the hang of it. Don't get too comfortable though. This section is timed and you'll want to hit the switch to close the gate, otherwise— After this section though, you get the reason people don't like Sonic's levels, the running sections. There are 4 of these in total, so you better get used to them. These sections have you running at Mach speed with no possible way of slowing down. All you can do is move left, right, and jump. Getting hit here costs you all of your rings, and you're not getting them back. I don't mind high-speed sections like this, though. The only issue is that these ones barely work. You can get hit by anything, or nothing, and sometimes, even when you win, you lose. What sucks, though, is that these sections are right at the end of each level they're in, meaning if you run out of lives on them, which you will on your first playthrough without a doubt, then it's all the way back to the beginning of with you. All of that said though, I don't hate them. They're stressful, but I actually kind of like the rush of trying to get to the end of the level without getting hit. It's exciting, for the wrong reasons, sure, but exciting nonetheless. I'm also just really patient when it comes to games, though. After completing Wave Ocean, you get more rocks for your shoes, and then get to fight the first boss. Bosses in this game are pretty hit or miss. Some are really good, and some are really, really bad. The first boss is the Egg Cerberus, which only has one head. Tails is here with you, but he doesn't do anything, so just pretend that he isn't. The boss is pretty simple. You have to get to Cerberus' tail and then control him in order to damage him. Knocking him into the wall does a fourth of his health bar, but running into one of the statues does half of its health. For some reason. Once you get him down to half health, though, you can start attacking his face now that his face's armor is gone. Just kidding! They forgot to code that part into the fight. So just do what you did again. While this is one of the worst boss fights in the game, the intimidation of the Cerberus alone makes up for it. Besides, this is the first boss. They get better.
It's no use!
Most of them get better. The next level is the first of the two worst levels in the game. These levels are terrible because you're carrying 145 pounds of dead weight while traversing them. This cuts off most of your abilities, but at least you get a cool shield, which doesn't really work. You can also walk on sand with it. I'm not sure if walking on sand was something you were terribly concerned about doing, but you can do it now. The level itself is pretty fun though. It's short and to the point. Unlike most of Shadow and all of Silver's stories, you're only traversing the outside of the ruins, which thank God for that. I don't even want to think about doing the 8-ball puzzles with Elise. Once you get done with the Dusty Desert area, Sonic and Elise have a nice moment where Elise explains the plot. I actually think that Elise could have been characterized really well in this scene. We're led to believe in this game that Elise doesn't have that many friends, and the reason she imprints on Sonic so much is because he's the first person to ever care about her, and see her more than just a princess who needs saving. Because of this, she shows affection to Sonic, and honestly, I have no problem with this. I think from a writing perspective, it's a perfectly natural direction to go in. With Elise's character, my issue comes when Sonic starts showing affection back to her. Not only is this extremely out of character, but him not showing affection to Elise could have made for a really interesting relationship between them. Elise loves Sonic and she stays with him despite the fact that he's certainly not interested in her. Sonic stays around Elise because he's worried that if he detaches himself from her, she'll have a mental breakdown and Iblis will be released. Missed opportunities aside though, we head back to Soliana and...
It's no use!
We now have the second boss in the game. I try to defend it and say it's not that bad, but...
It's no use!
The boss is pretty easy though. Silver only has 2 attacks. If you try to hit him directly, you'll get grabbed and thrown away by him. If you keep your distance though, then he'll start picking up objects around you and throw them at you. You can use this as an opportunity to attack while he's focusing. If you hit him enough, you can move on. This boss is rough though, so I'm glad. After the painful battle with Silver, Elise gets captured again, and you have to head to the coastal area of Soliana to rescue her. But not before doing the worst side mission in the game. The next mission requires you to find the captain of the FDA enforcement squad in order to pass. I'm just going to save you some time here so you don't have to decipher the riddle. It's the first guy. The guy that you talk to initially is the correct one. He's just a liar. Talk to him again and you'll be let through. Once you get to the coastal area of Soliana and jam out a bit, you run into Knuckles. He explains that he had a nice conversation with Eggman over tea where they negotiated the terms of Elise's release. Eggman tells Sonic that if he gives him a Chaos Emerald, he won't hurt the person who he cares about. Sonic, of course, agrees to this, because this exact situation has worked out so well for him in the past. After fighting some EGG androids, you'll be allowed into Eggman's base in White Acropolis, but don't go in yet! If you happen to run out of lives here, you're going all the way back to where you were after the Silver fight. Before you enter the level, pause the game and press the save button. Now, if you run out of lives, you'll start over right in front of the White Acropolis gate. I had to learn this the hard way, and it was not fun. Once you get into the level itself, you're presented with a snowboarding segment. These segments are basically tradition in Sonic Adventure games, and I'd say this one plays better than either of the ones in the previous games. My only gripe with it is some slight issues with the camera, but this isn't that big of a deal at all, really. Be sure you're charging up your jumps though, especially near the end, because there's a big gap you have to clear to get to the next segment. Speaking of the next segment, you'd think this would be a perfect opportunity to let you play as Knuckles, considering he was just introduced, but nope. Tails. I don't really mind it though. I'll get to Knuckles' gameplay later, but I'll just say now it's nothing too special. I do really like the gimmick with this level though. There are searchlights all around the base that will spawn enemies near you if you get caught in them. You have to use Tails' bombs to take them out before getting caught in them. In the final segment, you have to avoid searchlights while also looking for switches to deactivate the laser gates around the area. This part of the game actually feels pretty challenging and maze-like as you attempt to shut down each gate in order to get to the end. This level is also the first to introduce tank enemies. Get used to them, as they'll continue coming in later levels. Once you make it to the end, you'll have a nice chat with Eggman. Eggman informs you that you're late to his meeting, and that won't look good on your record, so to help you out, he'll use the Chaos Emerald you gave him to send you back in time a little bit so you can be on time. Unfortunately, his machine backfires and he accidentally sends you to 2020. In 2020, you'll find you're not alone though, as the Ultimate Wife form himself is with you. He tells us that after Leaf ate some bad stew, a pandemic emerged across the world, and now everyone died or something. The only way to get back to the present is to find 2 of the rocks and make a time portal. So we're off. Crisis City is probably one of the most infamous levels in the series, both because of its unforgiving design and its remake in Generations. Luckily for you, there's no overworld for the ruined future levels, meaning that if you run out of lives, the worst that happens is you have to replay the level. The first part of Crisis City is another snowboarding section. This one forces you to use what you learned from the last section and apply it even further here. Though this game is known for its glitches, the second snowboarding section is actually pretty tolerable. All you have to do is avoid some fire geysers and enemies. There are also items that feel genuinely fair and possible to achieve, which is kind of sad that I can't say that about a lot of the other items in the game. After the snowboarding section, you make your way up to a rail grinding section. This section is also pretty fun. It's stressful because one slip up can easily mean your death, but it's fun nonetheless. After this, you get more into the actual city, and have to deal with the hazards like the Iblis spawn. There are 4 types of Iblis spawn. The weakest variants are birds that attack from the distance. Above them are the Hellhounds, which attack head-on. Above them are the Worm incarnations, which attack from the ground, and finally there are the Goliath demons, which act as the tanks in Iblis's army. After getting through the city area, we make our way back to the sky for whatever reason. Here you have to platform between debris caught in the whirlwinds above. I haven't brought up the music that much because all Sonic games have beautiful soundtracks, but this game takes it a step farther. The music in this level specifically is absolutely top tier. After this segment, you have one last running segment, and this one is definitely the most infuriating in the game. If it's your first playthrough, you're probably going in this segment with 0 to 2 lives. If that's the case, you're screwed no matter what. This part of the level is pretty unforgiving, so here's my survival guide for it. Don't hold forward. This will kill you. Instead, just move left and right to avoid obstacles, and jump as little as possible. About halfway through this segment, the camera flips, and Sonic points out that there is a natural oddity that is constructed by wind and fire, making themselves into a violent swirl of force that has in its possession a large metal device engineered for the purposes of quickly traveling across large areas of land without having to walk. Don't bother trying to predict where the obstacles are going to appear or quickly move out of the way. Nobody has reaction time quick enough to deal with all of that at the angle the camera is facing. Instead, just stay near the middle and pray. Once you get past that, you'll see the goal. For God's sake, stay near the middle. Please! If you don't stay in the level complete zone and instead run to the sides, you absolutely can run past the goal and into the tornado. Don't be like me on my first playthrough. After getting through that hellscape, you can walk to the next level, Hell 2. This one is a bit more forgiving though, mainly because of how calm it is. This game also has great displays of consistency in materials in the series. Sand and water cannot be walked on. Lava, however, is of course a solid and can be walked on. The outer area isn't much to write home about. The meat of this area comes when you get inside the volcano enough to explore its underground caves. This is also where you get to play as Knuckles for the first time, a character who I almost forgot was in this game. He plays a lot like he did in the adventure games, but without the ability to dig. There's also the really annoying light bulb section near the end. Have fun with that. This is one of the most well-developed levels though, and it's the one that I commonly find the most enjoyable and encounter the least amount of glitches in. It's also just calming. With the music and the atmosphere, it feels almost cozy. This is immediately ruined after you beat the level though. Yeah, I won't deny it, this boss is ass. Iblis Phase 2 literally just has you sitting around waiting for it to actually do something. The fight isn't hard at all. You won't die on it, so you'll never have to redo it. Until Shadow's story. The problem is that this fight takes about as long as 3 normal fights in this game, just because of how much waiting there is. The only enjoyable part of it is the end when Iblis charges at you. Even then though, just move out of the way and you're safe. Once you defeat Iblis, you're able to go back to the present. Now we get the Bound ability. It doesn't work as well as it did in Adventure 2, but it does kind of work. Once you get it, you can get into the next level, Radical Train. This level isn't that broken, outside of a few overshoots with your homing attack you may encounter. For the first bit of this level, you'll realize that some terrorist has attached bombs to the tracks ahead. Eggman is already having his robots scout out the areas and find ways to defuse them, but you'll need to help out too. That means this level is timed, or at least the first part of it is. After defusing each of the bombs though, you're able to move on to another running section. This one isn't so bad though. Actually do jump in this one. If you don't, you'll immediately die. The controls are finicky, but manageable. At the end of the running section, you have to chase Eggman's train. It starts exploding after you chase after it though, so watch out for that. You can be hurt by the fire, but just moving to the side of the screen will keep that from happening. Unfortunately, the train is empty now, meaning Eggman is somewhere else. As you're searching for him, you get confronted by Silver, who still thinks you caused 9/11 or something. Luckily, the perfect male wife comes through to stop him, allowing you to go further. Meanwhile, Elise is heartbroken because she didn't have any friends or something along those lines, and now Sonic is dead because Eggman's machine backfired, so she plans to kill herself. Eggman tries to talk her down from it, but she jumps despite his best efforts. Unfortunately, Sonic happens to be jogging nearby and is able to catch her. Eggman is relieved by this and he tells Sonic they should hang out sometime. He then opens up his scheduling machine to help him figure out a date. Scheduling the date is actually pretty fun. It's definitely one of the more enjoyable boss fights in Sonic's story. There are two ways to do it. Either you climb on top of the machine and hit it on the head over and over again, or the much better and more sensible option, when it hovers down, use the Bound ability to get to its underside and destroy it that way. It's much easier than going up at the top, I promise you. Once you've done this 4 times, the machine will start crashing and you'll need to run out of the way to avoid it. Once you've done that, you're finally allowed to play the worst level in the game. Ah yes, the infamous jungle level. In Shadow's story, it's really short. In Silver's story, it's just right. And in Sonic's story, you're not leaving this level the same person you entered it as. This is the second of the 2 levels in this game that you have to run through while carrying 145 pounds of dead weight. The first half of the level has you platforming above the forest. The good news is that this is the most infuriating part of the level, so if you can get past this part, it's smooth sailing from here. Remember the shield you have that doesn't really work? Well, it extra doesn't work in this level. Don't even try to use it! The main gimmick of this level is little flower buds that you have to swing on. You're supposed to jump whenever the bud of the flower starts glowing, but this level brings back a common gimmick in this game of things not working even when you do them correctly. This level also contains the line with the worst delivery and timing in the Sonic series.
We're just out of the cave.
No, Sonic, you just got into the cave. You can tell the voice actor did this line and thought, that was terrible, should I try it again? But the developers just went, no, it's fine, we don't care. Then you're grinding on some more rails. This rail grinding segment is pretty easy though, so if you've made it here, just be careful and you probably won't die if you're lucky enough. This level also contains the log. The log is the most broken part of the game, and here's why. You're supposed to run down in a circle, wiping out enemies as you go. If you jump at any point during this though, you fall all the way to the bottom of the log. Despite this, the camera decides today is its day off, and has you feeling around the area until you get to the outside. This doesn't sound too hard considering it's just a cylindrical log, but you'd be wrong. It always takes me an entire 2 minutes to get out of this hellhole whenever I find myself stuck in it. Fuck this level. Oh yeah, then there's the second half. It has turtles. Yeah. After Hell 3, I'll save you some time and just say it didn't fucking matter. Elise gets kidnapped again. The good news is we're past all the terrible parts of Sonic's story, and the rest of it is actually really fun. How many levels do we have left? Oh, come on! Before we can get to Kingdom Valley, my favorite level in Sonic's story, we have to complete the trials for entry. The first trial is portals. Have fun with this one. The second trial requires you to fight a horde of enemies with no rings. This is actually a lot easier than it sounds because there aren't any tanks in the level. The last trial is the one I want to focus on though. The Trial of Love. Here, you, Sonic, have to choose between 2 fires in your heart. You're forced to weigh the flare of 2 living beings with true emotion as if they were objects. This trial is more than just a challenge or a test. It's a gauntlet. No, It's a crucible of will. Elise, the Phoenix, the woman with so much emotion and fire and absolutely zero personality. Someone with so much power, valor, and determination. Someone who would sacrifice the entire world to be with you. Amy, the one who would follow you to the ends of the earth. The one that never steps down from a challenge, no matter how pressing it may be. An acrobat, one of the secret abilities over the occult as well. Two flames of equal value. But how does one Amy? Yeah, I don't think a single person has ever chosen Elise in this trial. Once you get into the Kingdom Valley, you'll learn that Silver is on your side after Shadow was able to reveal to him that you didn't start World War II. The first part of this level is actually incredible. It really shows me what this game could have been if it just had more time. There aren't any bugs, each segment feels concrete and almost explorable. It really does make me sad to see the game reduced to this state, because I feel like if every level in the game was like this one, it would have been much better. It's almost like what we got in Sonic 06 was a mere demo of what really could have been given from the series. If my theory about Mephiles being a fragment of the end is true, and it is true, because I said so, and it's what I want to be true, so it is true, then maybe we can get a remake of Sonic 06, one like Sonic Frontiers, an open worlds game that shows what this game really could have been. I want that. You want that. Everyone wants that. What's wrong? Are you scared? Are you scared you can't do it? Do you not want to put in effort? Do you think people won't like it? Do you think that the one you're trying to please won't be satisfied with your work? There's nothing to risk here. You've already fucked up so badly with this that there's absolutely nothing you can do to make it worse. You might as well try to make it better, or are you scared that... This level also lets you play as Silver for a bit, which is an absolute win. A lot of people don't like Silver's gameplay, but I honestly love it. It's not as great as Shadow's gameplay, but it's still good. Some of the jumps are surprisingly tight too, meaning you have to give it your all in order to get to the end. We get another really good segment with Sonic, and then we get the last running segment in the game. I know that all of the other running sections in this game are really buggy and annoying, but this one, I love this one. Not only is it a great deal more playable than any of the other running sections, but the atmosphere is incredible too. The water flowing and floating across the walls as the egg carrier takes off really makes me feel the gravity of the situation. This is the only running section that I think actually executes the feeling of chasing after the end of the world extremely well, and I'm all for it. After this level, Eggman decides to go traveling with Elise, because he thinks seeing the world will help her in her suicidal tendencies. Unfortunately, there was a horrible error on Eggman's ship, and it crashes into the ocean. Luckily, Silver reminds Sonic that time travel is a thing, so he goes back in time to warn Eggman that 5-hour energy cannot be used to fuel an airplane for 5 hours. Luckily, now that Sonic got himself prep time, we can get ready for the final level, Aquatic Base, which is also really well made. In order to get to the base, you have to ring some bells, but that's pretty easy. Once you're inside, the real challenge begins. In this level, you have to use the skills of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, who was barely in this game, to get through. Sonic's sections are easy though, except for the giant ball puzzle. We will get to the giant ball puzzle. Tails' segments have you fighting hordes of robots, which is also easy enough as long as you know what you're doing and stay in the air. Knuckles' section, hit a switch with him so that he can feel importance. Anyways, Big Ball. We do not like the Big Ball. It haunts my dreams and invades my thoughts. The giant ball puzzle has you walking on a giant ball over a chasm in order to get to the end of the level. The issue is, there are laser gates. If you touch them with the big ball, it disintegrates and you die. The worst part is that right before the hardest part of the segment, Tails literally says,
"Be careful not to fall."
He says it in such a teasing manner too. He knew exactly what he was doing. Every time I hear him say this line, it makes me feel a little less bad for 9 in Sonic Prime. Other than that though, Sonic's sections are actually really fun. Most of them have you dodging lasers or fighting enemies, and with the kick-ass music for this level, it makes you feel like you're invading an actual secret base. After you beat this level, Sonic makes his way onto Eggman's ship to warn him about his extended warranty. Eggman understands this and offers Sonic and Elise a ride on his private jet instead. This cues the final boss of Sonic's story. What I really like about this battle is that as you're fighting, the platform you're on gets smaller and smaller. What I don't like about this battle is the beginning is mostly luck-based. You have to wait until Eggman charges at you in order to take control of his machine. Once you do, you have to fly it into falling debris from the ship. Sounds easy enough? Well, wrong. Because these debris fall so fast that you basically have to get lucky and hope that one falls nearby in order to ram him into it. In the true Sonic 06 fashion though, even if this does work out, it doesn't always work. The second half of the fight is much more bearable though. It takes a page out of the Egg Viper's book, very good fight by the way, and just shoots at you. For its final attack, when there's only one platform left, Eggman charges at you and you have to hit him before he hits you. Once you do that, you get what is by far the best scene in the game. Sonic and Elise manage to escape the flying ship, and admittedly, the scene is pretty cool. Elise then asks Sonic on a date, only to be rejected and called a furry. Elise then burns down all of Soliana in a murderous rage after this, and then makes Sonic and the secret rings. No one is happy, Sonic Team is dejected beyond belief, and I am absolutely devastated. Goodbye, everyone. Wow! I think I did the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. Not only that, but I made an entire video about Sonic 06 without bringing Mephiles a single time. No wonder I barely had anything good to say. Well, that all changes in the next video. See you then!